At the end of Jujutsu Kaisen, only one of these four will still be standing, or only one of these four will pass away. And this isn't a theory, this is a direct quote from Gege Akutami himself on the ending of his manga. So let's examine this quote with what we know now, especially including Gege's comments at the recent JJK Exhibition in Japan. But spoilers beware. Alright, so I've actually talked about this quote from Gege before. I've made a whole video on it and you guys can go check it out if you want. But in light of some new information, I was asked to re-examine it from EXO. And y'all can read what he asked if you'd like to. But basically, we got some new developments on the fate of two characters from this JJK exhibition. So with that in mind, what can we glean about this either one will die or one will live scenario? Now, it's been hard to determine which of those two scenarios it's going to be because the fates of characters have been left so vague, primarily Nobara, but also, as I'm sure you're aware, there has been tons of speculation about a potential gojo comeback, right? Well, now with where we are in the story, especially after these comments from the exhibition, it seems as if these two's fates are pretty much set in stone, meaning we have now at least two confirmed dead, which would guarantee us the only one will survive JJK scenario. Which means we now know either Yuji or Megumi is also doomed because only one will survive by the end of the manga. And honestly, both of these scenarios are so tragic, and that's perfectly in line with JJK, don't get me wrong, but if Yuji is the only one left at the end, then he has essentially failed his entire life's purpose, as placed upon him by his grandfather, right? You are strong, so help others. And yet, at the end, if he is surrounded by death on all sides, all of his closest friends, his mentor, then what good is victory, right? Yuji will absolutely blame himself, even though it's not truly his fault. Like, it's all much bigger than him. He's gonna blame himself for his role in being Sukuna's vessel and kind of unleashing that out into the world to some extent. So that's just a tragic ending, even if the good guys win. And Megumi is right there with him, right? I mean, Megumi's had a rough life in general. Essentially an orphan, was forced to kill not only his sister, but his surrogate father by his own hands with his own body and his own curse technique. He's already given up on life, right? And I do think there will be a comeback for him. I think there will be a switch. There will be a moment where he tries again. But if at the end of the day, even after that, Yuji dies, Nobara dies, Gojo dies, and he's the only one left, again, like a fresh orphan, essentially. Like, that is super tragic. Is he going to be able to pull himself out of the depths once again? Like, in either case, where the good guys win, both of those are just such sad endings. Now, don't get me wrong, even though that is tremendously sad, I'm not saying it would be bad, and in fact, I think it would be an extremely powerful ending to Jujutsu Kaisen, assuming Gege threads it all together nicely, which I assume he would. So I just didn't want anyone to get it twisted. And also, our new emote is officially live on YouTube for our YouTube members, so check it out, and the next one's coming soon. So with all that being said, if it is truly this scenario where one of them is going to die and one is going to live, which do you think it is? Obviously, it's easy to just assume that Yuji will be the one to die. He's the main character. He's got this direct connection to Sukuna. Some sort of self-sacrificial play makes a lot of sense. So I would say that, like, I'm leaning that way, but almost because of how obvious that is, it makes me wonder if it will instead be Megumi. So I could really see it going either way. And I think, honestly, a sacrifice from Megumi would be really powerful too, especially after he has been in the depths like he has. Like, some sort of redemptive moment to kind of come through for everyone would be really awesome. So I don't know. I'm actually torn now. I would love to hear y'all's thoughts on this. Now, as one final piece on this, I will say we don't know with 100% certainty that it is the only one will survive. While it does seem like Nobara and Gojo are for sure gone, there's always a little wiggle room. So just in case you didn't see Gege's comments from the JJK exhibition, he revealed that he had already decided to depart Nanami and Nobara in Shibuya before the arc even started. So Nobara's fate has been left really vague and ambiguous, but this statement makes it seem as if, oh, okay, Nobara is truly gone because that's something Gege decided before he even started writing the arc. But interestingly, like Lightning points out here, Gege specifically used the word depart when he was referring to Nobara and not the word died or death, which he freely used other places like with Geto's group. So was he being a little bit cheeky there, or did that just so happen to be the word he used? And as I'm sure you guys know, there's a million and one Gojo theories out there. Now, me personally, I don't think he can truly and fully return at this point. I do think there's room for a temporary return, but even under that situation, he would still ultimately pass away, right? But even if he is gone, that still leaves room for the scenario where only one person dies, and it's him. So maybe all three students could live, but that does feel like pretty wishful thinking at this point. And speaking of potential Gojo returns, I'm going to end out this video with a few more questions I've gotten, starting with this insanely generous one from Nayfun, who is also a YouTube member, shout out legend. He says, I feel like Gojo will have a return to help Yuta control his body in some form, but surely something has to happen with Yuji and Megumi before Sukuna dies. I agree. My thoughts are Gojo has a moment of clarity to help Yuta utilize his body correctly to injure Sukuna enough for Yuji to get through to Megumi and get him out. This could then lead to Sukuna starting the merger as his last option in Megumi's body before he's freed by Yuji. So I'm totally with you on basically everything here. You know, I don't know the nuance on how exactly each step will play out, but totally with you. This purple cannot just end Sukuna completely and won't just end the story because, yeah, Megumi is still a priority here. And I feel like Yuta at least has to have that somewhere in his mind. So this purple isn't to just fully disintegrate Sukuna. So I'm with you completely. And then in this exact same line, Callie Q was asking about the hollow purple potentially fully wiping out Megumi as well. So does Yuta have that in the back of his mind? And also in chapter 235, when Gojo hollow purpled, was that in his mind that he might be taking out Megumi? And I don't think so. I think, you know, it was pretty impromptu, the hollow purple, so I don't know if Gojo was like explicitly thinking about like, oh, this might take out Megumi. I'm sure on some level he knew that it wouldn't just like fully wipe him out because the intention of that hollow purple was to first and foremost destroy Maharaga. So I think any subsequent damage to Megumi and Sukuna was just kind of bonus. So I think, again, on some level, Gojo knew that that wasn't going to just fully delete Sukuna. It would probably beat and batter him up, which it did, which would then give Gojo the opportunity to defeat Sukuna in a way that would allow him to save Megumi, whatever that looks like. We still don't really know their full plan beyond, you know, Yuji getting through to him. Next, we've got another question about Gojo's potential return from Les, who says, Sukuna made a binding vow with himself to use the world-cutting slash, right? Correct. Well, if it's true that you break a binding vow with yourself, you only lose what you gained, could Gojo being alive again be like the punishment for breaking the vow? And I don't think so. I think it wouldn't like kind of change the reality in that way. I think it would just be a punishment upon Sukuna in some form. And you are correct that typically with a personal binding vow, all you lose is what you gained, but there are some exceptions there because that's generally speaking to something like Nanami's binding vow with his overtime, where he sacrifices cursed energy during the day to get a boost at night, right? So if he didn't sacrifice during the day, he just wouldn't get the boost at night. He didn't get the benefit yet, if that makes sense. But with something like Sukuna, where he's already gotten the benefit, he can't lose that per se. So I think the punishment would come in a different form on him, but we don't really know what that would look like. Another example would be Miwa's binding vow with her sword slash against Sukuna. She can't really lose that benefit because there's no way to lose it. So if she broke that vow by picking up another sword or something, I think she would suffer some different form of punishment. And then also about Gojo here, Rico says, I think all of Gojo's left eye imagery was just a Kakashi reference or homage the whole time. And you might be right. And for anybody that doesn't know, there's a lot of weird stuff with Gojo's eyes and the way Gege draws him a lot. So a lot of people speculated that could be foreshadowing for a binding vow to him sacrifice a sixth eye to come back. And clearly that doesn't seem to be what's going to happen here. So yeah, could just be artistic flair or could be an homage like that. Next up, Gherkin asked if there's any significance to cursed energy color. And I did talk about this in a video before, but I couldn't find it because it's just a random question in one of my question videos. But I don't think so. I think it's just design choice, aesthetic flair, especially in the anime, because as we know in the manga, it's black and white, right? So yeah, I'm sure Gege does have differences here and there, but I wouldn't put too much stock into like specific things trying to be conveyed there other than like, you know, typical shonen stuff. Good guys have this color, bad guys have that color, etc. Next up, we got a couple quick questions from Tomas. The first one is, do you think the infamous "stand proud, you are strong" really happened? Did Sukuna really say that to Jogo? And yes, I believe so. We still don't know exactly what's happening in those moments. Like, where are the characters when that's taking place? Is it some sort of like pre-afterlife vision? Could it be the cursed realm? But something similar happens with Kashimo, if you'll recall, after Sukuna defeats him. They have a little quick conversation. So I do believe those moments to have truly taken place. We just don't know exactly what's going on there still. And then your second question was, how come the voice recorder in the most recent chapter didn't affect Yuta as well? And we don't fully know the nuance of cursed speech, but there does seem to be a targeting apparatus for it. Like, there's intentionality behind the words, because we've seen on multiple occasions when Inumaki uses cursed speech that it doesn't affect his allies around him. It only affects who he's trying to affect. For example, in the Kyoto School Sister Exchange event, Kyoto Sister School Exchange event, he tells Hanami to stop when he's right next to Megumi, but it doesn't affect Megumi. So again, we don't know exactly how that works, but you can be intentional with your targets. So that's why it only affected Sukuna. Finally, for this video, got this question from Les, who asks, if Mahito somehow understood the concept and nuance of the six eyes, could he make a version of his own? Same question for Sukuna. And this Mahito question I've talked about before, not specifically with the six eyes, but just in general, like, what is idol transfiguration capable of? And I think theoretically it could do this. If Mahito fully understood like how the six eyes interact with the body, and it is purely like biological, physiological, and he again understood all of the nuance of that, then he should be able to morph someone's soul to give them that. Now, would that ever really happen? Probably not, but I again think it's feasible within his power set, if that makes sense. Now, for Sukuna, I don't think so, at least not in the same way. He couldn't just like craft himself six eyes, but he may have found out other ways to like emulate that efficiency, because Sukuna, a lot of his feats do point to the fact that like he's got something else going on, right? Like, he is crazy efficient. He is a genius in jujutsu. So like, does he literally have the six eyes? No, I don't think so. Could he like emulate them just via non-biological means? Maybe, but at that point, I wouldn't really call it the six eyes. I would just call it, you know, him figuring out a workaround to solve certain problems, if that makes sense. Anyways, y'all, that's all for this one. Thank you to everyone who sent in a question, and thank you guys so much for watching.